Good morning. So yesterday we discussed the variables, right? Like how to declare the variables, how to store a value, and what are the data types we have. That we have seen that, right? And we have seen the arithmetic operators, plus, minus, like this, right? Then we have already seen some assignment operators like equals, plus equals to, minus equals to, like that, right? Then let's see the some statements like if statements. So we have the conditional statements called if else, like this. Then we have looping statements, means while, do while, then for. So these are the statements we have in the Apex, and as well as if you take any programming language, there will be the looping statements and conditional statements as well. Let's see the conditional statements now. Now here, what I need to see, let's have the conditions, or let's say syntax of the if. If is the conditional statement, then here syntax will be like this. If condition, then statements. Okay, and if else will be like this. If else, it will be, syntax will be if condition, then here it is, here the statements, else block, then statements. Here let's see first if. Now here what I want to do is, I have two numbers, integer a equals to 10, then b equals to 20. Okay, now I have another variable called string result equals to this. Now my program is, if a is greater than b, then I have to store a value into the result like a is bigger than b. Now let's use the condition if a greater than b, means we are giving the condition. If a is greater than b, then result equals to a is bigger. Then let's display the result. System dot debug of result is, means based on the condition, if you want to execute some statements in the program, then you can use the if condition. Okay, now if you see that a is greater than b, no, the condition is wrong. Okay, let's give a is 100, so a is greater than b. Let's execute this. See this, a is bigger. Now what happens if we have given the a value is less than b? Then if we execute, there will be nothing, the result will be null, there will be nothing there, because the condition is not satisfied and there will be no value in the result. So result is like that. Okay, now next thing is if else. Now let's say If then this condition is wrong, then I need to display, I need to store result equals to B is bigger. Now let's just execute. So if A is greater than B, then the result will be A is bigger. If A is not greater than B, then simply B is bigger will be printed. See here. Okay. Now what happens if we have given both values as the same value? Okay. Now always B greater than B, B is bigger will be displayed because it is in the else condition, right? But it is not correct, right? In this case what we need to do is else. We have another type of condition called if else and if else if. You can use another if as well here. If B is greater than A, then it should be else result equals to both are equal. Okay. Now in this case this will be the exact program. We have covered all the scenarios here. Okay. This is how we can use the conditional statement called if else and if else if. Okay. Now let's see the looping statements. Okay. What is a looping statement? Looping statements means if you want to execute the same set of statements for multiple times, then you can use the looping statements. Let's say if I want to print A for 10 times, then you have to write system.debug for 10 times. Instead of that, you can write a looping statement where it prints the number of times the logic. Okay. For that we have some looping statements. One is while. So while syntax will be like this. While of condition, then see for every looping statement there will be three parts. One is initialization. Okay. Second one is condition, and third one is increment or decrement. Okay. There will be three parts in any looping statement, whether it is while, do while or for loop, whatever it is. There will be three parts. One is initialization, second one is condition, third one is increment or decrement. So here initialization will be there, starting condition, then statements, and then increment or decrement. This is the syntax of the while loop. Okay. First initialization will be there, and then condition will be checked. Then if the condition is true, then statements will be executed. Inside the loop itself we can have the increment or decrement. Then here we can have do while. Okay. In this do while, first do will be there. Okay. Then while will be there. Here condition. Sorry. Okay. Here first initialization, then increment or decrement, here statements, then condition. So if you observe that always initialization will be there first, Then in the while condition, first while will come, condition will be there, then set of statements, then increment and decrement. In the do while, first initialization will be there always, then do, and it will execute one time, then increment decrement will be happened here, then condition will be checked. Okay, but in the for loop, everything will be there in the single line. For initialization, okay, then condition, then increment or decrement. Here statements. If you observe that in while and do while, initialization, increment, decrement, condition will be in the different places, but in the for loop all will be in the same line of statements, okay, by comma separated. Now let's execute one thing. First what I need to do is, let's use while loop for printing the number from 1 to 20. So here as it is, first initialization will be there. Okay, now here if you want to print number of times, then you need to take the integer I equals to 1, okay, while condition I less than or equals to 20, means here I am using system.debug of, I am just using I. Now I plus plus, that's it. Now here if you observe that you have the initialization means a variable you need to declare with default value. Integer I equals to 1, while I less than or equals to 20, means I is 1 less than or equals to 20, yes it is right. So this will be printed, 1 will be printed, then I plus plus means I plus plus means I equals to I plus 1, means previously it is 1 plus 1. So you can simply use I equals to I plus 1. This is, you can use like this as well, or you can simply use I plus equals to 1. This is one way, or yesterday we have seen that, and another way is I plus plus. Whatever you want you can use this. Means you have to increment 1 by 1. Now what happens? First it will be 1 less than 20. So it will become here and it will be executed here. Then it increments plus 1, means 2 will be there. 2 less than or equals 20. Yes, true. Then it will print the 2. Then 2 plus 1, 3. 3 less than or equals to 20. Yes, true. So that it prints the 3. Like that it will be printed since 20 less than or equals to 20, it is true. Then it will become 21 less than or equals to 20, condition will be false, it will come out of the loop. Okay, now let's execute this. See this, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 until 20. Okay, understand how this will be executed. Now here the question is, why do we need initialization? Initialization means where we have to start the loop. Okay, on which condition you need to start the loop. For that you should have the initialization. Then why do we need a condition? Condition means somewhere the loop should be stopped, right? For that you need to give the condition. Then why do we need increment or decrement? To make the condition true or false, we need the increment or decrement. Okay, for this reason, for any loop you should have a start point and end point. Start point is initialization, end point is the condition. Then you should make some changes to execute the flow. So for that you should have the increment or decrement. Okay, this is the while loop. Okay, here always first the condition will be checked. If condition is true, then only the looping statements will be executed. Okay, Otherwise, if you give like I equals to 100, then nothing will be printed because 100 less than 20, so it won't print, right? Nothing will be printed here. If you want, let's execute this. Nothing is printed. Now, in the same way, let's say how to use do while. Okay. So as it is, first initialization will be there, right? So integer I equals to 1. Then the syntax is first do, like do system dot debug of I value. Then you need to give the condition increment or decrement like I plus plus. Then here while condition, while of I less than or equals to 20, semicolon. Now let's execute this. This will also print same way. See this. Then what is the difference? Let's say if you give 100 here, okay, even though you have given in 100, what we are trying to do, first initialization will be done, then in the do it executes once, 100 will be printed, I plus plus means 101 will be I value, then it checks the condition 101 less than 20, condition is false, so it won't print anything after that, but it will print at least one time, means inside the do, whatever the statements we have, those will be executed at least once in the do while. But in the while, you should be, condition should be true, otherwise it won't be executed. Let's execute this. See this? 100 is printed, later nothing is printed. So that is the difference between the while and do while. Okay, then so let's say if I want to display the numbers in the reverse order, like from 20 to 1, then what I need to give is I greater than or equals to 0. Okay, here we need to give I minus minus. Now what will happen, first will be 20 will be printed, minus 19 will be there, 19 greater than 0, then condition is true, it will be printed like this till 0. See this. Okay, so that's like increment or decrement. Based on your program and your requirement, you need to increment the conditions or decrement the conditions. Now here, let's use for loop. We know that in the for loop, initialization will be there, like simple. All will be in the same condition. I equals to 1, I less than or equals to 20, I plus plus. Now simply we can have the statements inside this I. So what happens? In the previous loops like do while or while, initialization will be separated, condition is separated, increment decrement was separated. But in this condition, in this for loop, initialization will be there, condition will be there, as well as increment decrement will be there in the same way. See this. Okay, you guys try the while loop, do while and for loop for printing 1 to 100 or 100 to 0 or something to calculate different other things like these things. Programs you try that, Fibonacci series, or calculating the sum of odd numbers till 100 or sum of even numbers till 100. Something you try that so that you can get familiar with the loops. Now let's have the object oriented concepts like OOPS. Okay, we have seen the, okay, let's see the collection data types as well. Before going to the collection data types, you should know the object and methods. Let's have class. Let's discuss the class. Okay, a class is a blueprint or template to create an instance or object for that class. Okay, in technical terms, a class is a group of members, variables and methods. A class is a group of variables and methods and constructors. Okay, a class is a template or blueprint where we use it to create an instance or object. How to create a class in Salesforce? Okay, class syntax will be like this. Access modifier, then access modifier, class, keyword, then class name. So here, this is how you can create the class using the syntax. Example, then what are the access modifiers we have? Okay, we have private access modifier, then public, we have the protected as well, public, protected, public, then global, we have web service. Okay, so these are the access modifiers we have in the Salesforce. So let's forget about all other things, just use public and global. I will explain others later. Okay, whenever you are creating a class itself, if you want to create a class like OPPS class, let's say class A, simply it will create public class A. Okay, inside the class you can have the constructors, okay, variables, constructors, then methods. Okay, these many will be there. Now let's see how to declare a variable inside the class. Simple way, we know that, use just data type integer a equals to 10. We have already used it, right? Okay, so then why do we need a class? So we are already executing the logic here and everything, then why do we need a class? Class is the metadata where we can store in the Salesforce, and whenever the program is running, that will calculate the data and everything. Means the metadata will be used to execute the logic whenever end user is trying to operate the Salesforce. So end user won't execute the logic in the execute anonymous, and he doesn't know the coding. For that we will be using the classes and other Apex language where we have to develop the applications. Now here you have integer a equals to 10. Now how to access those variables outside the class? Okay, now here if you see that access modifiers we have, private is there, right? So for any class or variable, the actual syntax is you should use the access modifier, then data type, then variable name, and then optionally equals default value, right? This we have already seen, this we have already seen that. But what is access modifier? So we are saying it's mandatory, but if you don't give any access modifier here, then the default access modifier will be private. Private means this variable can be used inside this class only. Means it can be accessed inside this class only. It cannot be accessed outside the class. Let's say how to access, see, whatever the variables you have declared inside the class, those variables are called as instance variables. So we have already seen that there are different types of variables. One is local variable, we have already seen that. Now instance variables, we are looking into that. Then we have local static variables as well. Okay, these variables are called as instance variables. Means if the variables are declared inside the class, then those variables are called as instance variables. How to access the instance variables? Instance variables can be accessed through the object only. How to create an object for the class? So class name, then variable name, or let's say we can say that object name equals to new keyword, then class name. First object name you should use, then object name dot variable name. You can access like this. This is the syntax, you should remember this. Means if you want to access the local, instance variables means the variables which are declared inside the class, those variables are called as instance variables. If you want to access the instance variable, then you should always create an instance for the class. Through that instance only you can access the instance variables. Now here class A, CA, I am giving this new class A. So this is how you have to create the object. So what is the object name? CA. CA dot A. This is how you can access. Now let me use system dot debug of CA dot A. Now let's try to execute. This is giving variable is not visible. Means if you don't give any access modifier, then access modifier will be private by default. That private instance variables or private members cannot be accessed outside the class. For that, what we need to do is you have to give public as the access modifier externally for the instance variables. Wherever there is a requirement to access the instance variables outside the class, for this type of variables you need to give the access modifier as the public, and then you can use that one. Just use. See this? So now you are able to access that modifier. So you can set the value as well. CA.A equals to 40. Okay. So now 40 will be displayed. See this, because we are setting the value externally. Okay. This is how you have to declare and access the instance variables in the class. If you have observed that we have used the class to create an object for that class, that's why we are calling class is a blueprint or template to create an object or instance. We have created an instance. For that instance, or with using that instance, we are able to assign a value for the variable, or we are able to access the value from the variable which is declared inside the class. Now let's discuss what is a constructor. Means constructor is a different type of method. I'll explain it later on the methods. First, how to give the constructor. Okay, so in this constructor will be declared like this. Syntax will be access modifier, then class name only, here variables, and then here you can have your own parameters. Let's say first you can have your statements. Okay, now let's go to use the same way access modifier. If you don't give any access modifier, then it will be always private for any other thing. Okay, for that I am giving, let's say if you don't give anything, class A, you have given using this dot debug of A. Okay, now if you try to execute that, it will give error because method is not visible, means the constructor is not visible because we have not given any access modifier. The default access modifier is the private. For that you should give always public for the constructor as well. So why do we need a constructor? A constructor is required to create an object. So if you want to create an instance or object for a class, then you should always use the constructor. So that's why after new you are giving the class name, then brackets. So this is how the constructor will be there. Then you can have a doubt like this. So before declaring this one, we have not this method, we didn't have this constructor, but we used. This is called default constructor. This will always be there whenever a class is created. By default, default constructor will be created for that specific class by the platform itself. Okay, now if you try this, so which will be executed first? First constructor will be executed. Okay, the constructor will be executed, then only other things will be executed. If you understand that, if you execute this, if you try to understand, see A is 10, then 40 is displayed. So that's how the constructor will be executed. Okay, now you can have the different constructors as well. Let's say if I have public class A of integer j. Now time to introduce this dot, let's say A equals to j. Now here if you understand this one, usually what happens, if we don't give any value, it will display 10 only because we are not assigning any value. A is the default value for the instance variable. So now what I need is, I need to pass different value to store in the my instance variables inside the class. For that what you can use, let's say 10 or let's say 100 I am giving. Now which constructor will be called? This is called constructor overloading. Okay, means with same name, if you have different constructors, then those are called as constructor overloading. Now here class A integer j means parameter it is allowing as 10, so that this constructor will be executed. It will be executed and it takes the 100 and it keeps in the 100 in the A, so that output will be 100 will come out. See this 100 is there because we used the parameterized constructor to pass a value to the variable which is inside the class. This is how you have to write the parameterized constructors to pass a value from the outside program to the class object variable. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, now let's see the methods. A method is also like constructor which is used to execute the set of statements, but method will be having the return type. It returns some value, but constructor won't return any value. Constructor is used to create an object, but method is used to execute some logic whenever that method is called using the object. Okay, now syntax of the method is access modifier, then return type, return data type, then method name. So this is called as the so default method type, but here you can have the methods with parameters like this. You can have the variables or arguments, we can say that arguments. Okay, now let's use, I'm going to create one method called public integer get multiply by get multi. I'm using this. Now what I need is return a into 10, and I'm using public integer get multi of 20. Let's say integer k. Now what I need is return a into j. Sorry, k. Now here if you observe that, okay, 100 I am passing, means a value will be 100. Okay, now if I call ca dot, see here it is instance method. Instance method means the method which is declared inside the class, that is called as instance method. And there are static methods as well. If there is a static keyword between the public and integer, then that is called as static method. So we don't need about static methods for now, but without static method, static variable means that method is called as instance method. Now if you want to call a instance variable, you should use object name or instance name. The same way, if you want to call the instance method, then you can use the object name dot method name get multi. Okay, you use it like this, right? Now it will return 100 into 10 by default, right? If we give 243 or 340, if you execute that, then what will be the return? Means integer result equals to, means here it is returning some value, means it is multiplying the a into 10, and result it is returning, means method will be giving some value by calculating some function. Like method is like a function where it is used to calculate some values and return back to the some user. That's why if you call a method, it is returning the some value by multiplying the a into 10. That result is returning back to the user that we are storing into the result. Now here let's store that value, or let's say print the value in the this one. See, this result is 3400. Right? Now if I use 23, 34 into 23, now which method will be called? This method will be called. This is also like as the instance method only. Here it will call the get multi method with parameter 23, and so that this method will be called. Now 34 into 23, the result will be returned to the result variable. Now result variable will be used anywhere in the program. See this 782. Static methods as well. Okay, what is a static method or static variable? If you declare a variable with keyword called static, then that variable is called as static variable. Okay, static variables you can use anywhere in the class. Okay, so now if you want to use static keyword, that static keyword can be used only for the methods and variables. Okay, static means one per class. Okay, how can you access the static variables? Static variables can be accessed by using the class name. That's it. Okay, you don't need the object for accessing the values. 34. Okay, so if it is instance variable or instance method, then you should always create an object, and through that object only you can access those instance variables or instance methods. But if it is a static variable or static method, then you can directly access using the class name dot variable name or class name dot object name. That's it. If you see this, execute. Okay, you understand the difference between the static variable and instance variable, static methods and instance methods, as well as constructors, I think. So any questions on this? Now let's recap one thing, whatever we have discussed today's class. We discussed the conditional statements like if else, another thing. Then we discussed the looping statements like the while, do while and for loop. Then we have discussed the class, how to create a class, another thing. Then constructor we have seen. Then methods. In these methods we have already discussed that instance methods and static methods. Okay, and we have seen the instance variables as well. Okay, you guys just go through all these concepts. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.